Hey everybody, Harry here with just a star-studded cast that I'll introduce in just a moment. And we're starting spring quarter. Online education, we're in our fourth year. Who would have known we were ahead of our time with online education? We use an academic quarter system at MSP Tech Talk. So we're talking fall, winter, and spring. We're going to take the summer off this year. Often have a summer quarter, but with a lot of things going on, we're going to load up for fall and let everybody enjoy the summer as they're able. So this is the start of a 6-lecture academic quarter, MSP Tech Talk Spring on remote work. And today we're starting off with the fairly high-level discussion, and then over the next few lectures, we double-click down into the deets, as it were. So let's get going. We got a lot going on. The goal is to keep it within 1 hour. Here we go. So for those of you that I have not met, Harry Brailsford, founder of SMB Nation, proudly celebrating our 20th year in business. And boy, howdy, with everybody working from home and doing what we do, I cleaned out a mini storage. And you know what 20 years looks like? It looks like 12 bankers' boxes full of accounting records that need to be shredded. So that's how bored I am. Wayne Turmel, introduce yourself, sir, the man of the hour.
Boy, I didn't know I was the man of the hour. Hi, greetings.
You're the man of the half hour.
Exactly. I am with the Remote Leadership Institute. A lot of you have known me over the years. We've been associated with SMB Nation. I am kind of obsessed with the way people manage and communicate online. So I'm here to do some of that. And I am in Las Vegas.
All right. Hey, folks, if you're not speaking, if you could click on mute, please, so we avoid what we used to call on sports talk the AM radio effect. So thank you very much. Thank you, Wayne. We have a long relationship going on there, my friend, back to the great webinar days. Ari, nice to team with you again, my friend. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, great to be here. Big fan of Harry. We had a lot of fun the last time we did a webinar together. I'm the lead evangelist of the awesome RMM and PSA Atera, of which we'll get to later on, and really excited to talk about all things remote work with Wayne and hear about Andy. Super pumped.
All right, and Keith Nelson has already raised his hand from Southern California saying sports talk. I hope it's the Dallas Cowboys. Keith, don't give up your day job. And Keith, I do believe we solved the echo. Thank you for your feedback on that. Isaac, good day, sir.
Hello, everyone. How are we? I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And I am so excited to talk MSP with everyone. So I am a customer success manager at Atera. I've been a customer success manager for the last 8 years, and I'm just excited to be here.
All right. And Isaac, I'm going to connect you with a new MSP that recently started using Atera. Sherry Coleman out of Reno, Nevada, just this morning reached out and said, how can I have better connections inside Atera? And Isaac, I'm going to connect you with Sherry Coleman. She is on the webinar. Andy Higgins from Dripping Springs, Texas, you were featured in the Atera Network Discovery Review. Good day to you, sir. And what's the temperature down there? What's going on?
Good day from Texas, yes. I'm not a Dallas Cowboys supporter. I'm a Manchester City supporter because I'm not from this country, of course. It's 81 degrees here in Texas, and I'm glad to be here to speak on behalf of the MSPs, an MSP who uses the Atera PSA system and RMM. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And we move on to the agenda. So the agenda is very simple. We have Wayne Turmel from the Remote Leadership Institute guiding us through leading at a distance. We're going to jump right into that. And then we cut over to talk about a really cool paper that I had the opportunity to double click down into, released by Atera, and in particular, Ari Sherbill on working remotely. So with that said, Wayne, leading at a distance, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, hi everybody. As I said, I've been geeking out about the leadership and communication piece of working remotely for years, written a number of books on the subject. And today, what we're going to do is two things. We're going to take a look at communicating when we work remotely and being productive. And we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask you to wear two hats today. For Harry, that's kind of one for each personality.
Actually, yeah, there.
But first, we're going to talk about your role as a business owner, as somebody who may have a team, has to communicate with people when you're not face to face, and also when you're managing your own time. But then also in your role, second hat, as the advisor to your customers and helping them think about their communication needs and how you can support that. So, hey, we're going to take a very high level view, but look at kind of both of those situations. So Harry, you can go to the next slide if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things when we're talking about communication, and it's important to remember that it's more than just information transfer. It's not just you telling somebody else. True communication goes both ways. It also, particularly as somebody serving your customers, it needs to be proactive, just to say, hey, they know how to reach me. If they didn't say they had a question, they must understand what I said. It's a lot of checking. It's a lot of making sure that people understand. It's a lot of trust, but, trust Allah, but tie your camel to a tree in terms of the way that we interact with people.
Yeah,
Both parties need to care, and I'm going to introduce a concept to you that is in a number of our books, but it's really important, which is this concept of choosing the right tool for the right job. And the filter that you use for that is something that we call richness versus scope. Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, Wayne, I just wanted to add on that second point, needs to be proactive. I learned proactive communication the hard way. In the 90s, as you're well aware, I was a white collar, back then they were called consultants, IT consultants, not MSPs, large regional accounting firm, and my niche was small business server. And the accounting firm taught me, and I did not know this, but I learned very quickly after being corrected a couple of times, to be proactive in your communication. And Wayne, what that looked like, and it really did lead to financial success. So Wayne, let's say that we have a problem with DNS on small business server and I don't know what it is. And so the idea is I call every day at 3 p.m. and leave Bob Wallace at Wallace Properties, a real estate company, a message saying, Bob, this is Harry. I'm still working on the problem. I promised to call you at 3 p.m. today, and I'm going to call you in exactly 24 hours with an update. And when you get the point, that did more for additional work than anything I can point to as the proactive communication.
And the only thing that I would add to that, Harry, is that for your employees, for those of you that have employees, and for your customers, proactivity also means asking the question. If you think there's something wrong, you better find out, and the sooner the better. Don't wait until somebody reaches out to you. Okay, you can go on to the next slide. So let's talk about some of the mistakes that new teleworkers make, and whether these are your customers who are suddenly finding themselves working from home, or your employees who are maybe not in, checking into the office with you like they did. The most common mistakes that people make when working remotely, number one is relying on email. Email is a fabulous tool when used right. Just as a simple example, if you send an email and then sit there drumming your fingers waiting for an answer, you're using it wrong. Email is an asynchronous tool. It is not designed to be used synchronously. If you've ever had that email thread that goes on and never ends, you understand the problem. Another mistake a lot of people use, and I'm not going to pick on engineers and tech people, but a lot of them aren't comfortable using webcam. But if we're talking about communicating, if we're talking about making sure that we're understanding each other and building relationships and all of those things that we have to do. Humans are primarily visual creatures. If you're not using your webcam on one-on-one calls, on your consulting calls, on your coaching calls with your employees, you are working with one hand tied behind your back.
Right.
A big issue is with people who aren't used to working from home. And so you may have people who are waiting for the boss to go first or to reach out to them. A lot of people say, well, they're working and I don't want to bother them, so I'll wait until they reach out to me. No, it goes back to that proactivity component. One of the reasons we do that, of course, is we go, well, this isn't really a big deal. I'll wait until I have a regular call with Harry at 3 o'clock. I'll wait to talk to him then. Of course, the challenge is if you wait until it's important, that probably also means that if it's a problem, it's now a problem. And it may have been something that you could have avoided early on. And the other mistake that we make, and this is particularly true with your staff, and it's also true with your customers, is when we meet face to face, we tend to be very personal. How's it going? You know, sorry about your Cowboys. Whatever the conversation is, we tend to have those conversations. When we work remotely, there's a tendency to, I don't want to waste your time. Let's get down to business. And we don't build those relationships the way that we did when we were face to face. So those are some of, on a communication level, and notice we're not talking even about the technology yet, but these are some of the things that we need to take into account. And if people aren't used to working from home, we need to help them overcome some of that. Okay, Harry, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Wayne, a couple of things. One is, I believe you have a poll question, and I don't want to get too far afield. If you would let me know when you'd like the poll question.
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's see where people are at. That's a good catch, Harry.
All right.
If
Jenny?
the lovely and talented Jenny can go ahead and open the poll question for us, that would be great.
And while the poll's coming up and folks have a chance to respond, I had an observation, and I'm going to get in trouble again for this one, that happened in Austin, Texas at the SpiceWorks conference. I interviewed an author of a book about worrying. He was a guest in the Canon printer booth. And I asked about gender and worrying, and his research, in fact, showed that oftentimes women and professional women can have a higher propensity for worry because men and women are different. I mean, I don't know how to even say it, but his research showed that moms probably worry a little bit more than dads. So let's get me in trouble here. Has your research shown any difference between men and women wanting to go on camera? And
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, it does, Harry. And it's interesting. Women who use their webcams find it more valuable than some men do. And they are often the most resistant to using them because of the whole notion of personal appearance, trying to look professional. I just got back from the gym. I haven't got my makeup on this morning, whatever it is. It's interesting that if you're talking to a customer, of course, you want to be as professional looking as you can. Once you've built the relationship, or once you're working with people that you work with all the time, the other people aren't nearly as worried about that as you are. So when it comes to initially resisting using the webcam, there's a little bit of resistance there. Jenny, did we see the result? There you go. Okay, so how well do your clients use technology to really communicate? And again, this is beyond mere data transfer. And what you're seeing there is about 6% use it extremely well, which sounds right. The rest are making it work. but they're not necessarily being successful. And there's a couple of things to consider here. One is that 80% of people use 20% of the features of tools like Microsoft Teams, WebEx, whatever it is. You all know that as people who supply technology. Well, if you've got a job that's really hard and you're not maximizing it, it's going to be difficult. Go ahead, Harry, move on to the next slide. I know that we're short on time and I want to make best use of everybody's time. So we need to jumpstart communication. That's on us. That's on us as the business owner. It's on us as the valued partner. It's on us. So how do we jumpstart communication? How do we get people using the tools? Well, the first is have a plan to reach out to every team member. Have a plan to reach out to every customer. How are you going to do it? What tools are you going to use? How often are you going to communicate? When it comes to choosing the tools, ask yourself, is this the best way to communicate? Let me give you the worst example of using technology I've ever heard. My wife was once fired by instant messenger.
that
Let's
took
go out
it
on a limb and assume that as a fairly important communication tool, probably not fitting the right tool to the right job. Email is really convenient. We've got those customers that maybe, oh, I can't have this conversation right now. So we send the email rather than doing what we know we should do, which is pick up the phone or get in the car or whatever it is. If you really want a high-performing team, you need to be willing to offer feedback to your peers. If the only feedback people get is from the boss, it's really hard to build a high-performing team. So if you've got people working for you, are they willing to coach each other? And one of the things that you can do is reduce stress with the way you write your emails. If you send an instant message and say, have you got a second? Those are the scariest words in the English language. If you send, have you got a second to a team member, their first thought is, I'm fired.
Yeah.
Take it easy. You know, have you got a minute? I need to talk to you about X. Question for you, no rush. Help reduce the stress a little bit. Go ahead, Harry. Okay, how do you choose the right tool for the right job? If you remember nothing else of what I've talked about here today, and the odds are pretty good, the one thing that I want you to remember is this matrix, which is how do you choose the right tool for the right job? Anytime we choose a technology, it's based on richness versus scope. Face-to-face communication, you and I having a cup of coffee, incredibly rich. We're reading each other's body language. We can hear the tone of voice. We're probably relaxed. It's real-time communication. If you have a question, you ask it, I answer it. It's all good. We know that rich communication is fabulous and it's not always practical, right? We're on the wrong side of town or the wrong side of the state. We are in different time zones. We have 20 people that we're communicating with, and you can't do one-on-one with everybody. But it's important. So richness is important. Scope is, email is an example of scope. It's fast, it's consistent. 100 people can get the same message at the exact same time. And we know if we've ever sent an email that took 3 days of apologies for, it's not terribly rich. You can't get subtlety, you can't get context, you don't know what the person's response is. Hell, we don't even know if they've read it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are over relying on email, which when we work remotely kind of becomes the default, it's not necessarily the right tool. That's where things like webcams, things like Microsoft Teams, the ability to have meetings, whiteboards, share visuals so that we're looking at the same thing at the same time are really, really critical. And it's important as a leader, as a manager, as a customer service rep, and as a valued consultant. Am I choosing the right communication tool for the right job?
Yep.
If you ever wonder, or if your default is to go to one thing or the other, take a look at this and ask yourself, of all the tools you have at your disposal, phones, webcams, getting in the car, email, instant message, text, for this job right now, what is the right tool? That is so key to communication. And it's going to be critical as you're advising your customers on things like, why do I need Microsoft Teams? There's a reason why they need that, and they can't just go with text or WhatsApp or whatever it is that they're using.
Yeah, Wayne, I'll add value if I can on the individual phone conversations. So where here again, where I upped my game is my sister's husband is an emergency room doctor in Seattle, and known the guy for over 10 years. And he proactively, when I was dealing, with some billing issues, some this, some that over in healthcare, and he lives in healthcare, he said, let's give him a call right now. And we did. We called like the billing department, and you just pick up the phone and give them a call right now. And Wayne, I don't know if I'm introverted or whatever, or over on the tech side, but that's not a natural act for us geeks to just pick up the phone right now and give them a call about your bill.
Well, it's not, and I'll take it further than that. I will bet you that 75% of my interactions during the course of a day are on webcam as opposed to phone. Whether those are sales calls, whether that's customer service calls, calls with my team. And the way that I did that was a very simple thing. Whenever I made an appointment with a client, my first question was, great, Tuesday at 2, you want to do webcam or phone? And you just make it part of the conversation. You make it easy for them to say yes. They say, well, webcam would be cool, but I don't have I do, let me send you an invitation.
Yeah.
And the ability to instantly communicate. We are literally a push of a button away with most tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and whatever you're using. Again, you're the leader of the team. You are the consultant. You are the trusted partner. Take the responsibility, and it's amazing how often, whether it's your employees or your customers, will follow your lead. Go ahead on, Harry. By the way, if any of you have questions, get them in, because I'd love to. And the Atera guys, you know better than to be shy, right?
I just have to say that I couldn't agree with you more. Sometimes it just takes you being, taking that risk and turning on that webcam, and you kind of get that comfort zone with the client as you're having that conversation. By the way, this is just a fluke to everyone listening that my webcam is not turned on. I apologize. Sounds like a hypocrite talking right now. I'm really so sorry that my webcam's off. Just a bit of a technical issue. But I couldn't agree with you more. And also, you build a relationship better, and you kind of get to know your customer better at that point. You get to understand what they want.
I can't tell you, Isaac, how often, I've been on a call and, the cat walks into the room and they're all embarrassed. But I'm like, oh, what's your baby's name? And we start talking about the cat or the dog, or what books you've got on the shelf behind you. Or
you're human too. Exactly.
It's conversation. It's relationship building.
Yeah.
It's basic, yes. And we need to stop putting that stress on it and just let it flow, and it'll happen.
Absolutely. So let's talk about being productive when we're working remotely. Right now, a lot of people have been thrown into the deep end for this. Your employees are suddenly working from the north end of the dining room table. Your customers are struggling with this. Maybe they're not able to go into the office. So there are some things. Some of them are natural, right? If you got a house full of kids and the dog and whatever else is going on. But there are also things like email and instant message and phone is a big productivity killer. If we don't help our people set some boundaries around that, they can go down the rabbit hole. Hell, we can go down the rabbit hole. If you've ever spent that day doing nothing but email and not getting to the important stuff, you understand. A big thing for your team, is make sure that they understand when they accept an assignment from you what the priority is. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are the boss, their assumption is whatever you just asked them to do is priority one.
Yeah.
So watch out for that, because they could be doing something really important and you have some minor thing, hey, could you do X for me? And they will drop what they're doing to do what you ask them to do because you're the boss. So we need to be conscious of that. And the big thing is not structuring and blocking time. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Let's go to, I think it's pretty close to the end of the slides here for my little part of the puppet show. Dealing with your domestic stuff, I will tell you just one thing on here. The biggest mistake people make is trying to block out a work day. It's not going to happen. You're going to have your spouse, your kid, whatever. It's much better to break it up, schedule an hour for work, and then 20 minutes to deal with the stuff around you. If you try to keep the kids out of your office all morning, they are going to explode.
Yeah.
And the other thing is schedule breaks for yourself. One of the unintended consequences of working from home, and as business owners, you know this, you can't shut it off. You start the minute you roll out of bed in the morning and you're still working after dinner. And for you as the entrepreneur, that's our drug of choice. That's fine. For your people, it can lead to burnout really, really quickly. So help them do that. Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, I was going to say on the priorities, Ginny over in the radio control room and I have worked together for a number of years. And so what I try to do, Wayne, is say, put that on your B list. Hey, here's something we need to do, but put that on your B list and versus the A list. I don't know that we've ever gotten to the C list, but we're trying to. Okay, let me move on.
But you're offering her guidance on how to do that, right?
Yeah.
When you're managing your interruptions, a big thing is use your status updates on things like Microsoft Teams and your email. Here's the thing. If I look on Teams and I see, oh, Andy's there, and I send him a note and he doesn't answer me, I'm going to get pretty snarky. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's working on something that can't be interrupted. I don't know if he's made a target run. I don't know what's going on. All I know is it says he's there and he's not talking to me. If you step away, just say, I'm away from my desk or I can't be disturbed. It allows you to say, I'll be out of the office till 2 o'clock. Those kinds of things can make communication easier. The big thing for managing interruptions, full disclosure, I have the attention span of an Irish setter. If I'm trying to work and I hear bing, bing with incoming notices, it will pull me away every time. If I'm trying to focus, the most important productivity thing I've ever done, or productivity, because I'm Canadian, the most important thing we've ever done is just turn off the dinger. It allows me to focus and not get dragged down the rabbit hole every time an email comes in. Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, and I was going to say, folks, shout out to Carl Palachek, an MSP from Sacramento, California, in our space, who's written a couple of books on standard operating procedures. But on the other hand, he has a site called Relax, Focus, Succeed, and he goes over some of these very same things.
Yeah, Carl does great work.
Yeah, he does.
It's nice to know we're in sync.
Here we go, sir.
When we're setting our priorities, and some of this we've already talked about, you've all been covied to death. You all understand urgent versus important. And when the emails start coming in and the phone starts ringing and the customers start whining, it's really, really easy to get dragged down. Harry the other day copped to being a victim of shiny object syndrome, which is absolutely a challenge. So two things. One is, before you drop what you're doing to do something else, ask yourself, is it truly important, or, you know, does it need to be done right now? The second thing is, it's important to balance your individual tasks with the team's work. For those of you who are the business owner, you know you have to work on the business and not just in the business. There are things that have to be done. And one great way to do this is to block time to take care of all the quick administrivia things, so they aren't driving you crazy when you have to do a deep dive. Go ahead, Harry.
All righty.
One of the joys of GoToWebinar, which is not my favorite tool, is that only one person can drive, right? And I hope, Jenny, we're getting lots of questions in queue, because I know the Atera guys are very smart, and I am dying to hear what you folks in the audience are hearing. The last thing I think that I want to talk about is just be sure to block your time. The biggest mistake people make with their calendars is they block meetings and customer calls, and they don't block time for anything else. So if your team is sharing your calendar and they see, oh, Harry's in a meeting till 1, but I can call him right after that, and he's got 30 things to do, I am now an interruption, right? Or he is now going to get an unexpected interruption. Don't be afraid to block time when you need to be focused and unavailable. We've already talked about status updates and the importance of that. And finally, whether you choose to take this advice or not is your business as an entrepreneur. As a boss, you need to help your people schedule their start and stop times. Help them manage their time, because one of the biggest causes of burnout for remote workers, especially if they're not used to it and they don't do it all the time, is one of the reasons they're more productive is they spend more hours doing it. And they're afraid that if they don't respond to an email at 7:30 at night, it's going to look bad for them. It's going to look like they are not working. Help them. You are the boss. You can help them set the guardrails for their time so that they aren't burning out. Harry, you want to go to just one quick thing, and then we'll turn it over to the Atera guys, because we're running a little long here.
Okay, and Wayne, if you don't mind, the folks, we do have some questions queued, and we're going to get to you, Kathy and Keith, and we're going to try to bring you on live. Okay, so we're trying to live and breathe the remote worker experience ourselves. So Jenny,
well, and it certainly makes webinars like this a richer experience, right? When you can see the speakers, when we know that it's interactive.
Yeah,
there you go.
Okay, so here we go. And this actually answers one of the questions, but I'm going to have Kathy ask it herself in a moment. But go ahead, Wayne. What now?
This is just really simply, I don't want to do a hard sell, just offer you a resource. We have a product called 12 Weeks to Being a Great Remote Teammate. It is 12 weeks of short videos, webinars, downloadable documents, text reminders on being a teammate, not just a team member, staying engaged. If you want it for your employees, if you want to share it with your customers, or you want to be a better remote worker yourself, it's been reduced from $300 to $99. It's available at the link there. That's enough of a sales pitch for me. I want to hear what the Atera guys have to say for themselves.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we cut over, and folks, we're probably going to run a few minutes over. You know, that's the world we live in. We had suggested a 1 p.m. Pacific stop. I can certainly go over if you can go over. So we'll sort that out. But Jenny, see if you can bring in Kathy Mueller to ask her question. Kathy, if you're available to ask your question live via your computer, because this would be the slide. And if not, I'll read the question, Wayne. I know the question.
Kathy, what do you got?
Jenny, if you could give us a status update. I know we're putting Kathy on the spot.
Yep, Kathy needs to unmute herself.
Okay, and folks, I'm going to take just an extra moment to try this. Keith, I'm going to bring you online a little bit later so we can hop over to Atira. But Keith, I do see your questions and your snarkiness on the Dallas Cowboys.
Kathy should be live now.
Kathy, are you there? All right. Oh, did I hear Kathy? Oh, okay, Jenny, go ahead and mute
But
Kathy.
Harry, she is a first-time caller, long-time listener.
There you go. That's sports talk for you. So Kathy asked, which of your books would be most helpful as a reference for this subject? So Wayne, we're talking about the book, not necessarily the 12-week system. Quickly, can you recommend one of your books?
Without being a weasel, it depends what you need. As a manager, the correct answer is the Long Distance Leader Rules for Remarkable Remote Leadership. If you are an individual person, a salesperson, a consultant who needs to run better virtual meetings, the book is Meet Like You Mean It, A Leader's Guide to Painless and Productive Virtual Meetings.
All right, thank you. So we move on. Andy, Atira, Ari, what is the story?
Well, first of all, I had so much fun listening to Wayne. I mean, just learning so much. I didn't even realize how much I could learn about doing remote work, which is what's so interesting about the time that we're living about all these little distinctions, the webcam versus audio. It's so interesting and fascinating and useful. So that just as its own was very valuable. Yeah, just before we get into the MSP guide, really wanted to take a minute and give context to interviewing an awesome friend and partner, awesome Andy Higgins from Austin. I'll let you tell about a little bit more about your business, imcollaboration.com, but you're a big user of Atera, and really what I would love to get started with, just before we get into Atera, is how has this remote situation changed your own work as an MSP, as a break fix, as an IT service provider?
Oh, that's a big question. I can't answer that in 1 minute. No, I mean, the break fix thing is what we all started with, I think, MSPs. I've been switching to one. And I think the key thing with Atera is that it's helped me make that switch to being an MSP and move away from break fix. Not that I still do break fix stuff, but from an MSP perspective, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I was doing manually, and now I got Atera to do it, not for me, but to help me manage all that stuff, So there you go. Yeah, no, it's been very helpful.
Well, and what would you say in terms of your own work as an IT service provider and these challenges and these distinctions in terms of the differences in how a meeting is run? What would you say has been most useful for you in this new work environment?
From Atera or from what our other panelists were talking about?
Both.
What Wayne was talking, because I mean, to be honest, I've been using instant messaging and video conferencing for 20 years. So I've been using it forever. I used to work for IBM when their first instant messaging and video stuff came out. That was built by an Israeli company who were responsible for AOL. But all that stuff, that stuff, something I will say that's amusing to me is that video was never viewed by anybody as a big thing up to about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And personally, I think it's to do with the speed of the internet. We can now get decent video. And so people are understanding they can turn it on and it doesn't mess up all the connectivity. It allows them, they can still do everything else and watch video. And as Wayne said, it is a massive increase, because if you've studied anything about communication, only 25% of communication is done by the voice. Everything else is by the hands and the facial. So it's a massive increase to help. And I try and do it with my customers all the time. Especially all my customers are moving to Teams now. They want to use Teams. That's great from an MSP perspective, and I get them on video all the time, even the ladies.
So here's another interesting question is right. So there was a big emphasis on video and the
Right.
distinction. At the same time, there's all kinds of smaller, between the richness and the scope. So when smaller questions or tickets or challenges, whatever come up from your clients, have you used chat? Like, has chat been useful, like on the fly specifically?
Most of my clients don't know much about computers. This is the standard way they work. If they have a problem, they Google it. If they don't figure it out that way, they come to me. I remote manage in and I fix it. That's what happens. So chat, to a certain degree, I don't think it. I don't want to overplay the chat. I think the video communication is the important, face to face or just talking on the phone. Say, I'm going to come in and fix this. Go make a coffee, come back. I fixed it. That's fine. So does that sound?
And that sounds unique.
Ari,
to your business.
if I may, one thing about chat that we are determining, and it has to do with the fact Andy works with business owners who tend to skew a little bit older than the general population. It's largely demographic. There is a whole generation and a half of people who are perfectly comfortable. My daughter needs to be constantly reminded that phones also carry voice. Because all they do is text and chat. So some of that is demographic, I think.
And that's very true, because my majority of my customers are, Wayne, older consultant type of characters.
And Wayne,
so it more depends on, Isaac.
Sorry, and Wayne, to reiterate a point that you mentioned earlier, it's all about using the right method. I mean, starting off with chat, if you can get something done in a timely fashion, wonderful. But if you're realizing that you're not making progress, you need to take initiative and find out that alternate communication to get things done. And that's about getting service done right for your customer and being proactive like we spoke about. And that's important.
Of course, that's what you guys are trying to do, right? Is give them the suite that allows them to do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, I think so. I couldn't agree with you more. You need to start somewhere, and I think chat can be a great tool to do just that and see what you can do with it. And if not, take it from there, but start from that. Sometimes that helps.
So, and Andy, what would you say, and appreciate the distinction, Isaac, that's great. Andy, what would you say specifically in the switch did you most use in Atera? And then I'll talk a little bit about Atera and how it's helped you specifically make the switch.
The RMM piece, I think. And then adding all the users to the, adding all the user accounts in there and being able to immediately switch to the right machine. So the organization of being able to get to the right place, organization and the RMM, that's what I've used to start with. And then I've been discovering all these features that are hidden away in certain cases. I go down and click on a few things. I find, oh, whoa, that's cool. So there's loads and loads of, what do you call it? What's it called when you hide something? It's Easter eggs, that's right. Sort of Easter eggs.
Wow.
I mean, they're really there. You can find them, but they're not Easter eggs. You haven't got to like stand on one leg or the type of stuff. Yeah.
Hey,
that's good.
Just before I forget, but Jenny, could you make a note with the thank you email that goes out tomorrow? In addition to some resources we're sending out to everybody that attended, Jenny, could you also add the link to the case study, the product review that features Andy? They can go to Atera to get that. Let's also include that link so they can learn more about Andy. And Ari, back to you.
Yeah, and maybe just to link a little bit more about Atera specifically, what brought you to choose Atera in any case? What specifically was it as an IT business owner?
Me? Well, I did my research. I knew I needed something. I needed a tool that did what you do, the PSA tool and the RMM. Because, well, that's what people in my communities were telling me. That's the next step. So I did, I did my research, and I found yours was a very well priced. I mean, it was priced for the small MSP. That's the key thing. They don't price by endpoints. They price by users, and so that sold it for me. And it does everything I need to do and more. So
Yeah, and
There we
listen,
go.
I mean, first of all, I appreciate how open and honest and transparent you are and descriptive, and that is like the whole vision of Atera and how it got started. Like Gil started off because he saw that there were all these other solutions out there, but at the end of the day, the small MSP does not have an affordable solution that doesn't have any contracts. It's pay-per technician it gives you unlimited devices. That's an all-in-one platform without being punished when you grow, right? You have any, especially with all these people working remotely, you've got to set up all these new devices and endpoints, but you don't get charged more for it. So that's part of the whole vision in the first place, and that we were the first. Atera was the first RMM and PSA to have this disruptive pricing. And yeah, now we're monitoring 1 million devices, and just really respect and appreciate your contribution to the narrative and how you use it specifically. And maybe I was gonna call you Jenny because I see on the camera it says Jenny, but I meant Harry. But if you can go to the next slide, and we'll talk about the. Yeah, so then part of this of being a company, being an RMM for the IT community. So we wanted to create some useful guides that not only you can learn about, which is great, but also as an additional resource that you can send to your clients. So we wrote this useful and inspiring guide to working remotely, not about IT at all, more about as a resource that you can send to your clients. And Andy, how when you got that, or how has that been helpful for you, useful for you, the guide itself?
The guide itself, what I'm about to do is I'm sticking my name all over it to make it look like I wrote it, which is good. Yep. So I went through and looked at all the links. So if I got any questions back about it, I knew what I was talking about. So it really did seem like maybe I wrote it. And then so I did my homework on it. And yeah, I'm going to put it on my website and say, yeah, if you sign up for this, I'll give you this free guide, a useful, inspiring guide to working remotely. And I didn't have to do anything, actually. So that was good. Very helpful.
And that was the intention, because we know you're busy. We know you're managing tickets, and even we had a call the other day, and he was like, I just finished a call. I'm on the call. That's the way the IT MSP leader. And yeah, it does touch on some points that Wayne talked about, which is great. Also gives you some interesting, I think for your end users, your customers, your clients, for you to send this to them, gives a number of really interesting tools, like how to make internal communication more fun, how to have really powerful and useful workstations, which was something that Wayne talked about. They have this like exercise machine that's like a workstation. Just interesting things that people don't necessarily think about. But now that the remote work has overwhelmed our realities, it's a useful thing to send out. I think we can go to the next slide. Covers a lot of things, and again, it's just for you to send to your. Yeah, so this is a little bit of the overview, but I want to get to the Q&A because I know that you guys probably have a lot of questions. But this is just a little bit of the overview of what you get. Learning about your setting up your structure, your inspired work environment, a list of remote tools, unleash your fun. That's a happy part. But yeah, let's continue on, unless anyone else has anything to.
Again, I just want to take a shout out, get that on camera. This is my copy of the guide, as I went through and added hopefully a little bit of feedback. For example, my postgraduate work was actually in project management. So I offered a little feedback to you about Scrum with Trello and that kind of thing. But overall, the guide was flawless, extremely well edited. And Ari, I had 2 editions. I mean, that's all I got. So
we'll have to sign one for you. Yeah.
There we go. Let's go to questions. So Jenny, if you could bring in Keith. Keith kind of loaded up some things. Then we're going to get to Linda and Kathy's. Oh, Kathy said she was muted. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Huey and so on. So Keith Nelson out of Southern California, how you doing, man? Jenny's going to bring you on.
Great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's actually a cloud burst outside in Seattle, but I'm doing okay.
Well, I hope the NFL starts so I can hit a couple of Cowboy games again this year. A couple issues on time management, and I think that some people miss this, especially in remote working. I like to say we have to keep in perspective what we do for a living, and it's not saving lives. So I think it's paramount of importance to not only schedule your own personal time, but to make it a culture in your company. I could tell you, I've walked up to employees and said, "What are you doing here? I notice on your schedule your kid has a Little League game." And during those times, if we want to fully allow people to recharge, we shouldn't be texting, pinging, and doing those things. So I think it's important when you're communicating with your staff or your clients and just a mutual respect is to not even ping them during their off time, is to allow them free, unfeathered off time to recharge and rework. And remember, the printer's going to be down in an hour. He's not going to die. We'll all make it through this. So, we have this tech ego, and I have it too. I'm as guilty, where we think we wear a red cape and we save the world, but we really don't. So I think that helps with your service culture, and and I think that's just important when you're deciding on scheduling and wondering if someone's ignoring you or not. Maybe you should look and see, maybe they're doing something.
Keith, if I can add something to that, as the business owner, as the leader, especially right now when things are so unsettled and, we've got family at home where we're used to be our domain, that we could work by ourselves and all of that good stuff, that rules applies to us as well. That we tell our team, hey, I am going to be unavailable for X amount of time. And I will be available, this time, so that we're setting guardrails for ourselves, because your culture starts with yourself. So I commend you for helping keep them on track for that. But we have to eat our own dog food, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
All righty. Well, with that said, we have Linda Lindquist. Linda, if you're available to come online and ask your question, Jenny will try to raise you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a small business, and my clients are mainly senior citizens, so I do support for them. In the past 6 weeks, I've been double busy doing remote work. So I call them, and something that Andy said sparked my interest. Is it possible to video call them, video conference them while I'm doing remote support? I should know the answer to that, but I don't.
Well, this is Andy. Can I can feel that. I mean, yes, absolutely you can. I mean, obviously, I use Teams with all my customers. I'm on their team. Well, I'm available to chat with them. I mean, Teams is just Skype for business to the next level. And yeah, and I do RMM, and I have 2 screens. I mean, 2 screens helps, but you could still do it with 1 screen. But yes, if you got the bandwidth.
I'm using TeamViewer for remote support.
That's it.
Real well. But I call them on the phone, but it never occurred to me to video with them. I'm not even sure that my senior citizens know how to do that, but
yeah, you probably get a picture of their arm or something. No, yeah, absolutely you can. And TeamViewer is a super solution. I switched from TeamViewer to Atera because the thing in Atera is free, so you get free TeamViewer when you buy Atera. It's not TeamViewer, but they use a thing called Splashtop, which is slightly less functionality than TeamViewer, but I found I didn't need all the functionality in TeamViewer. But good question.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, that is. And Kathy, you had a second question about it. You said any privacy issues. Would you like to expand on what you're thinking was? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking to Linda. My bad. Hello. I got to get this beanie off my head. we'll circle back to Kathy in a minute if we can. So the next step was Huey, and Huey, you asked a question and you answered it, but if you could come on live, because I want to emphasize what the question was, and then you see what the answer was. Huey, out of the state of Oregon, how you doing down there? And Jenny, let me know if we have radio contact. Otherwise, I'll ask the question and I'll answer it. I'm happy to do that.
Huey, you're unmuted. You should be good to go.
All right, I'll tell you what, in the spirit of moving ahead, Huey Baker out of the state of Oregon asked, what is the remote tool used? And then he answered it a couple lines later saying, I see it Splashtop. And I just wanted to reemphasize that. And then Kathy has clarified, thank you, Kathy, for the clarification about privacy issues and the question, the context of any privacy issues related to like what happened with Zoom bombing and that kind of thing. Anyone on the panel today want to talk about privacy, video conferencing? Wayne, in fact, Wayne, I'm going to start with you since you're the Remote Leadership Institute. What are you hearing in terms of containment and privacy in these chats?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is you saw how quickly Zoom added a button, right? The big thing is it's important, whatever tool you're using, whether it's Teams, Zoom, whatever you're using, that you understand what is the default privileges and what can be done with the click of a button. So for example, you can set in Microsoft Teams, the minute somebody clicks the link, they join, or they need to be allowed in by the meeting host. If it's a team meeting, I'm pretty fearless. I would rather people be able to join the meeting and talk with each other and do all that stuff before I show up. If it's a meeting where we don't want, the link might be out in the world, we'll set it so that you have to be allowed in by the meeting host. But generally speaking, that involves finding the permissions and figuring out what the default is. In WebEx, the default is sit down, shut up. You can't do anything until we tell you. In Zoom, it's kind of the other way around. So just learn your tool, but most of them have security settings that can be tweaked if that's a concern.
Okay, thank you. And hey, here's the good news. We're at time. The core questions are cleared. Steve Banks said a big thank you to each of you presenting today. I need to chat. Really appreciated the content today. Take care, Steve. Steve out of Port Orchard, Washington. Andy, I got a chat note from you that you might have one or two more comments to make. Andy Higgins, sir, go ahead, and then we're gonna bring this plane in for a landing and pretty much on time.
Yeah, well, as an MSP, I thought what I'd do is, I've got the Atera guys on the line. I'd ask them a question about future things, because they just recently introduced this app for my phone and iPhone, my iPad, and that's nice. It has Atera, what do you call it, alerts. The alerts come up on it, and also allows me to do Splashtop onto remote devices. But the one thing that's missing are the ticketing. It's the ticketing piece. I'd like to have the tickets show up on my mobile device. Any idea when that's going to be available?
It's coming. Yeah, great question. We know that this is definitely something that people want. It's already in development. Atera works in an agile format, as you know. We're constantly rolling out new upgrades, new features, and this happens every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks, it's like, oh, we wanted this, we're having it. And we're constantly listening to the feedback. We understand that there's a need for the PSA and the mobile app. It'll be here shortly, just hang tight. But in the meantime, if there are any suggestions, any questions, our product team and our R&D team are always listening. We have a forum on Facebook, and we also have our feature boards. We're constantly wanting to hear what you need. So please tell us, because that's exactly what we're working on.
Cool, excellent. Because I noticed you released something today. You had like 20 new things in an email I got, so I looked down them and. But the one. So I'll expect it in 3 weeks. Okay.
Hold tight, hold tight. You're gonna be shocked.
All right. Thanks, Isaac.
Absolutely, and I can attest to that. I've worked with Atira for several years. Atira visited Gil in the early days, visited Bainbridge Island, came over to the pub and a distillery. We went and bought some vodka at a distillery and went to the pub and had a happy hour with some MSPs. It's all good. With that said, we are at time and we always like to respect the time. So I want to give a shout out to all the ships at sea, including Sherry Coleman out of Reno, Nevada, a fellow bicyclist. She's a runner, an MSP, and so on. So Sherry, we're going to get that ride in next year around Lake Tahoe in early June. This year, unfortunately, I'm unable to do the round the lake ride on that Sunday, so we'll do it next year when things get better. Atira, thank you for being a well-behaved community sponsor, and I mean that sincerely. Not everybody is. And Wayne Turmel, fantastic working with you again, sir. I think we've known each other 15 years back to the early webinar days in a past life. So thank you very much. And Andy, we'll see you on the flip side next time I'm in the Austin area coming up this fall. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.
Wash your hands.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.